welcome back to another episode of Camper Hack on the Acoustica channel. We got a fun one for you today. So on the last episode, we did we sprayed some two-part spray insulation into that old camper over there. And the episode before that, we installed a diesel heater. And today I'm going to do a little bit of prep work here. So as you see, I got a bunch of plywood so I can start skinning the inside of the camper here. I'm not sure if this will pick up on camera, but right over here I got some spare camper parts that I decided I'm going to reuse. And I'm going to dispose of pretty much everything else. So I don't have a whole lot of space to work here right now, but I'm going to try to make it work anyways. So what I'm going to do today, I got some polyurethane. I picked this up on sale at Old Home Depot for $12.50 a gallon. Which is pretty nice. I was going to pay, I think, like 30 bucks for a couple of gallons. This is an exterior polyurethane, mildew resistant, algae resistant, waterproof, scratch and peel resistant. Has all the good stuff in there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to coat both sides of these panels using one of these little compressed sprayer things here. And this polyurethane is okay to use with these compressed containers. It says not to use it through a compressor, through an air compressor. I imagine that's because that'll bubble up your polyurethane and make your spray look like shite. So I picked this up at Home Depot for like 5 bucks. It was on sale, so it was pretty nice. It's cheaper than a brush, and it's going to save me a lot of time, I'm hoping. So this holds 1 gallon, so I'm going to put 1 gallon polyurethane in here after I shake this up. Pump that up a few times, and then I'm just going to start spraying. And I'm not sure where I'm going to put everything for now, but I at least want to get one coat on. And the idea for me is I'm going to go ahead and coat both sides in a full sheet form, and then I'll measure and cut it out later. And then the final step is I'll take some of this polyurethane and I'll seal all the edges so that it's a nice sealed, they're all nice sealed panels. And then we're going to start hanging all the panels. Start with the ceiling, work our way down the walls. We still have a few extra pieces from the old camper over here that I'm going to use as templates for some of the windows and stuff, since it's already cut out the size and I was able to pull it out in one piece. And also when we hang, I'm borrowing a little finishing nailer from one of my buddies. Some 3/4 inch finishing nails, and able to hang these up pretty quick once we start rolling. And I think I'm going to give that a try. I usually use screws, but that takes a long time and it's a little more expensive. And the few people I've talked to seem to think that it'll hold just fine. They recommend using the stapler. I got a little stapler over there too for the roof. To hold that in, but the wall should be fine with the finishing nailer, so we'll see. We'll see. I can always just tack up a couple extra screws if I want to, but the finishing nails were pretty cheap. They're about 5 bucks for 1,000 of them, so when you compare that to screws, it is pretty cheap, especially how quick I'm going to be able to install it. My only concern is that with the flexing of the truck and bouncing around, that'll eventually work its way out. But I gotta remember that this whole camper is stapled together, stapled and glued together from factory, and all the pallets, this is the same kind of finishing nails they used to pound together some pallets and stuff, so it's pretty strong stuff. I'm gonna give it a try, and if I don't like it, then I'll just tack in a couple of screws here and there to make it work. So I'm gonna go ahead and shake this up, fill up my jug here, get it compressed, and then figure out where I'm going to stage everything, and then start spraying. And I'll catch in with you here in a minute. Alright guys, we're ready to do some spraying. I switched up the tone on you. The other one it wasn't the color I wanted, so I went back to Old Home Depot and hit the old clearance rack and got a stain and sealant in one, the honey gold. So we'll see how that works. It should spray on pretty good. Did a test coat right here on this one. It came out a little too thick, so you got to really keep the pressure up if you're going to use one of these things, because it'll give you a better spray pattern. It won't be so clumpy. So I don't really know what I'm doing, guys. I'm just going to go ahead and go for it, though. This one's turned out better. I like this kind of gold. I think this would be a nice color for it. Well, that's turned out way better. Give this the old, give it about 30 pumps or so, and it give me a nice pressure. That went on pretty slick. This one, you can tell I don't know how it's going to show up on camera, but I definitely sprayed it a little more uneven, and it super clumpy right in there, so such is the way of things. We'll see how it dries. Because it's a stain, I'm hoping a lot of it will soak right up into it. Alright, I think we're going to go ahead and let this sit for an hour. It says to let it sit for an hour before or in between coats, so look at this go. I think a stain and a sealer is going to be a pretty alright way to go, especially since I sprayed it on. I was a little worried about spraying on polyurethane and having it dry and look a little uneven when it's all cured. Nice thing about the stain and the sealer is it's going to absorb up into that wood and kind of even itself out a little bit, so it'll make up for my inconsistencies and the imperfect sprays. Neighbor kids are having some fun. Yeah, I like this honey gold though, so I'll probably have to accent it with some like darker colors or something. I'm not an interior decorator. Seems to me I can't have fun with it though. So that took no time at all. There we go. Alaskan biker gang out there raising hell. Yeah. And I suppose if this side looks awful, it can be the side that is facing the frame, and I'll just have to try to do a better job on the other side. So I don't know, I feel a lot better about it now. Get back to you. It's the next day, everyone, and it looks like it's drying or absorbing pretty good. I went ahead and did a second coat last night after I let it sit for a couple hours, and was a little worried. I'll give you a close-up here in a second, but I started to run out and I blew a bunch of air and it just like sharded all over the place and caused a bunch of streaking and things, and I was worried that was going to affect the overall end product. But I've never used this stain in sealer, so I wasn't sure if it was just going to dry and harden like that or if it was going to be like a stain and take a while. And this shit looks like it's going to take a while. It's still pretty wet, so I think I can just treat it like a stain and massage it in, wipe off the excess, and it'll be good. Just give you a little close-up so you can see what I'm talking about here. So right in here you can see where it built up and started to drip everywhere, but it's still wet, so you can grab some t-shirts or something. This one turned out pretty alright. That one looks a lot darker. It might just be the lighting, I don't know. We will see. I think this one turned out the best. Got a nice thick film on there. Alright, so I'm going to treat this like a stain since that's how it's acting. Stain in sealer. And if you got some old... t-shirts, I have some old shitty underwear I'm going to use. They're not shitty, they're just old and full of holes. So if I was thinking I would have kept all of them over the past few months and I would have a bunch more. But you want to use like a nice cotton cloth or something smooth. You don't want to use paper towel or something that's going to shed a bunch of fibers and get that stuck in your stain and mess it up. And let me get a close-up here so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, you can kind of already see the light area right here. I was just testing this out and rubbing it in a bit, but you can see where it's all streaking. Let's take your cotton cloth. Just kind of massage it in there. This is a pine wood, so it's a very soft, porous wood. It absorbs very nicely, but it also absorbs fairly uneven. Look at how porous it is. Some spots it's more porous than others. So this is going to work out pretty good, I think. This will help wipe off the excess, as well as blend some of the lighter spots. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this to all the boards. Oh yeah, this will be nice. Let's see what happens. I don't know, what do you guys think? Should I just put you on a time lapse, and it'll probably take me 15-20 minutes or so, but we'll see if we can make this a little 10-second clip. Give you a little bit of a close-up here. Actually turned out better than I thought it would. Pretty happy with that. Probably give this one another rub down. I saturated this board. This one, I really like how dark this one turned out compared to the other ones. So my tones will be a little mixed match, so I'll have to Remember that when I'm installing these inside the camper. Alright, so massaging the stain and the stain and sealer in one into the wood's doing a couple of things. One, it's wiping off the excess sealant. Two, it's allowing us to hit the spots that weren't covered as well, and we're able to massage it into those lighter areas. And it is a nice porous wood, so when I apply light pressure and I'm massaging it in there, it's soaking into the wood a little better than just spraying it on and being purely topographical, if that makes sense. Yeah, I like it. This is going to help this dry out a little quicker. The directions say you got to give it at least 72 hours to fully cure. We're at about the 24-hour mark. I think I'm going to flip it over and just spray the other side though, so I can try to make up for some time here. I want to use this camper, damn it, but also I want to do it right, so I'll find the balance between rushing it and doing it right. Man, I really like how this one turned out. It's a nice dark color. Okay. Alright, well, I'm going to go ahead and rinse and repeat on the other side. I'll let this sit and air out a little bit first though. It's been about an hour or so since I wiped it down. Actually looks really nice now. So I think this is going to turn out pretty alright. Feels dry enough. I think I'm going to go ahead and flip it around. Go ahead and spray down the other side. Ooh, I really like how dark this one turned out. Definitely got some areas that weren't covered as well, but I always have the option to add more stain later, or stain and sealer in one. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and get these flipped around. Welcome back to another episode of Camper Hack on the Kushka channel. Before I get too far ahead on hanging this walling, or the side paneling, walls, whatever, skinning the inside of the camper, wanted to bring you in. So I think last time I checked in with you, I was staining all the wood. Now all of the wood is stained front and back, and it's had a couple of days to cure. It started last weekend, and now we're the following Saturday, and I sprayed it down throughout the week, put a couple of coats, rubbed it down. I believe I showed you all the steps. And so right now I'm getting ready, or I am cutting the very first piece that's going to be on the ceiling, the rear section. And I'll show you that real quick. Pretty easy process. I'm using basic tools like I do. So I measured the inside because this first piece is going to have a cutout for the hatch, the rear ventilation hatch. And so I measured it widthwise, lengthwise, and then measured approximately where the cutout needs to be, using the good old Milwaukee skill saw. Love this thing, cuts nice and smooth. Using a tape measure, chalk line, and a pencil. Really basic. I don't have a table saw or anything. If you do, it'd probably be a little nicer, but otherwise, try to keep your cut straight. I'll give you a little close-up so I can show you what I'm doing here. Okay, so I made my first 2 cuts with the skill saw. It's a very delicate procedure. If you've never done it, you kind of got to drop it in. I varied a little bit here, but I think I'll be all right. Try not to have any overlap. Want the cuts to meet up nicely here. And I'll show you the inside. So you'll recall from earlier episodes in the Camper Hack series last year, I had a bunch of this foam board, and when I removed it, I was able to remove most of it in chunks. And I only last year I only re-insulated the front half of the camper. So I reused these pieces and I cut the extra insulation out of the way so it's a nice form fit. Up in here, I used a different type of insulation beforehand and I ripped all of that out, so I'm just recycling all the little rectangular bits that went in the walls. I have a bunch of these pieces, and that's what you're gonna see here. It's not a perfect fit. I don't know, it's probably not the right way to do it. I would rather it be nice and flush like this and a tight fit, but working with what I have, I didn't want to buy a new sheet. This stuff's pretty expensive, so I just kind of pieced it all together. And I hope that'll be alright. I realize that that's an air gap, but I think between the R value of the spray and insulation and this stuff, I think I should be okay from condensation. I hope so, at least. If I'm screwing up, let me know. Let me know down in the comments if you advise against this, but figured I have it, might as well recycle it. So that's the first piece I'm going to cut, is from back here all the way out 38 inches here, 23.5 inches from the back to here, 28.5 inches back in here. I have that all measured out and cut on the board. I'm not going to take all this stuff apart and put a hole. I'm just going to cut a little slit so that I can get these wires through and then build a little box for the electronic circuit breaker there. But that is pretty much it, guys. I'm going to go ahead and keep cutting and fitting. And let's see. Yeah, a little awkward here. So I would have rather go a full 4 feet this way, but that 4 feet would have put me right in the middle, so I wouldn't have had anything to attach to. So I believe 40 inches gets me somewhere up in here. We'll see. Yeah, and then we got 6 feet across. So that's what we are working with. We'll see how well this turns out and how well I can butt up these seams. All right, let's get to it. Okay, I got the first piece tacked up there using a air compressor stapler. It's 9/16 staples to get through. I did have to shorten it up on one side. I didn't do it evenly on both sides. I just took a little bit off so I can make it fit a little better, and then I brought the whole piece over just enough to where it's almost like flush, so I can't staple that in. So I'll probably spray a little bit of spray foam in here to close off that air gap and call it good. There's still a little trim thing that fits around there, so that'll keep that sealed in. Otherwise it looks pretty alright. I like it. So I think the rest is going to look pretty good. So what I'm going for here is the wood. When I stained it, it didn't all come out one color, as you would imagine. Some sides turned out darker, some sides turned out lighter, and there's some cool grains in there. So I'm gonna play with the grains a little bit and how the stain came out. And I'm gonna use the darker stuff on the ceiling, lighter stuff on the sides. And I have a couple really cool pieces picked out that stain nicely and really brought out the wood tone. I think will add a nice touch to this old camper. So that's how that went on. Maybe I'll show you the next one. This was the first piece, so I wanted to get it down and get a process first before I started showing everyone what I was doing, because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just doing. So yeah, we're gonna do the ceiling first, and then we're gonna do the walls. I initially didn't know why I was gonna do that. I just seen it, just when I looked at how this was built, that looks like how it was built before, and how I've seen other houses built. It looks like the ceiling's always put up first. And my buddy, as a journeyman carpenter, told me that's because it makes the walls a lot easier to put up when the ceiling's up, because obviously the ceiling will create a little bit of a gap and it just looks nicer. So that makes sense to me, so that's what I'm going to do. One more little tip for you guys when you're fitting in your camper pieces, and of course our camper walls are not 100% flush, and we got staples and shit, and if they're old, they might be a little bit warped. So cutting a straight line, cutting your piece straight might not always line up, so you can take your little multi-tool here and then just run it along the sides to cut off the little minute mounts and just keep it flush with the wall. That'll suck up a little bit better. And I did that on both sides so that it fit a little bit more flush. Alright, so I decided not to use the template for this that I pulled out because it looks like shit and the measurements are a little bit wrong. So I just went and remeasured. I don't even know if you can see that on camera here. Essentially, here to width-wise, we're going to go about 71.5. I think will fit about perfect. Then from here to here, from the back to about as far as we're going to go up here is about 23 inches. Then we got 25 inches from the wall to about where the window is on each side, and 7 inches and 7 1/8 from the back of the wall to about right up here. So I think that's what we're going to go with. I'm going to go ahead and start marking my lines on the board, and using my snap line to trace everything, not trace everything out, but lay everything out. So I think it will probably work all right. Yeah, the other, I'll show you the stencil here so you can see what I'm talking about. Yeah, so there's the stencil. It's the one, it's what I was using before, and it works all right, but it was just a little bit too short. And then I basically traced this out from the top of the roof and cut it, and so it kind of came out a little funky, not exactly square. So we're not going to use it. I'll throw that in the burn pile, and I already got this cut to length. Now I just got to do all the measurements and everything and get to cutting. Alright, so I got the ceiling put up yesterday. Finished up in the evening a little bit. Turned out alright. Went a little crazy in some spots with the multi-tool in the dark. But I think I'll fill that in with some wood filler and probably touch up the ceiling. Probably touch up everything with stain again once everything's in its place. But I think it looks alright. All the insulation fit up there nicely. Everything seems to be fitting nice and tight. A lot better than it was before. And this morning I was prepping the surfaces, making sure we get nice and flat. Busted out the old angle grinder to knock down some of the screws that were sticking out. I think I told you in other episodes, or maybe even earlier in this episode, I don't know what I'm doing yet, but this cabin was, or this camper cupboards and shelves and stuff was screwed from the outside in, and then it was skinned. Big pain in the ass. But I think when they built these things, they were just trying to pump out as many as they could, and they probably did not expect it to last almost 40 years now. This was built in 82. It's 2001, so old camper. Anyways, so I did all the measurements and everything, got this all marked out. So what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to use one sheet of plywood to cover a good majority of this. It's about 71.5 inches from back to about right here, and then the 4 feet will cover to almost about right here. So I got to make a little strip to cover the bottom, and the other side is going to measure the exact same, but I got a couple obstacles in the way that I got to cut out. Also thinking about filling in this vent and not using that vent anymore. It doesn't really do too much besides let out heat constantly and let bugs in. And bugs are a big freaking issue in summertime. And I hate waking up to getting bitten by 1,000 mosquitoes, so we'll probably cover that up. When I'm cooking, there's lots of ventilation. Windows, doors, windows, and all the windows. Let's see if you can see here. I'm gonna clean this up. But you can probably see a little bit of air. Oh, there you go. See right there. They're all vented for drainage. So I got plenty of ventilation in all the windows. So that's all right. I'll be able to keep my heat in a little bit better, keep the bugs out, and I'll still have more than enough ventilation. All right, just wanted to get you caught up here. I'm gonna go ahead and pick my piece in there, start measuring, start cutting. What is going on, my friends? No, been a little bit since I checked in, but before I got too carried away, finished it off, I wanted to give you a little update. Just finished doing all the trim here. Can't remember where we left off. I was probably hanging these walls still. And I was going to use the old wall paneling as a template for those, but they just weren't the right size, so I went ahead and measured everything out and cut it. Like always, use measuring tape, skill saw, and a snap line for everything. In this instance, it would have really been nice to have a table saw, but that's okay. But I just finished the trim and installed the bedding here. It's not sealed in yet. I want to make sure my window delete is done leaking on me. It was raining last week, so I had a chance to test it out, and it was dripping a little bit. I gave it the old water test today, hit it with the hose, and seemed to be holding out. So I think I'm just going to leave it like this for now, and then if it holds true through the end of the week, it's supposed to start raining here, then I'll go ahead and seal it in with some spray and insulation. So all I have left to do is trim out the windows. Rebuild a cabinet right here. I was looking at the old Home Depot lumberyard and 1/2-inch plywood, and holy cow guys, $60 for a 4x8 sheet of CDX 1/2-inch plywood. It's not even the good stuff, so even though I can afford it, I just can't justify spending that amount of money to build a simple little camper cabinet. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and reuse that countertop that came out, and I'm going to use whatever scraps I have to build the frame. I picked up some 1x2s that I'll use for the frame. So far so good though. Everything's pretty airtight. Stays nice and warm and dry in here. Between the heater, the new insulation and everything, I ran the dehumidifier in here for a day just to see if there was a difference, and sure as shit, usually when I'm running that dehumidifier, I'll kick it up and it'll be like 76% humidity, but this time it was 38%, and I just ran it for a little bit, brought it down to about 33. It's just sweating. But yeah, coming along pretty good. Sorry, I've been a little busy. Haven't shown you a whole lot of what I've been up to here. It's just been one of those things where I just geeked out on it, and it's therapeutic for me to do these kinds of things without recording it all the time. Recording makes things take twice as long, of course, and then I got to think of things to tell you instead of just getting in the zone and cutting loose on it. And I didn't really know what I was going to do until it was done, so I think it's going to turn out pretty good. I'll probably cue you in here after I make a little bit more progress. The trim, pretty happy with the trim. That was a happy thing that just fell in my lap. My buddy is a carpenter, and I think they just cut the ends of some 2x1s off that were just 1/2 inch too wide, and so they ripped the ends off of all the boards, and he brought over a bundle of trim. I spray painted it all black like I did down here, because I figured I'll just do black this time. Then I just staple it all on with the air stapler there. Thing's been a lifesaver. It makes things take so much less time, guys, instead of screwing everything in. One, you don't have to worry about batteries. Two, you can get like 1,000 staples for $5 instead of getting a couple hundred screws for 20 bucks, whatever the hell it is. Stuff's expensive these days. Super freaking expensive. Let's see, what else did I do? Got this all painted up and installed. I was working on the stove and stuff over here. Show you real quick. Cleaned up the sink a little bit. That's gonna do it for this video, folks. Thanks for sticking around this long. We covered a lot of ground on this one, didn't we? When we started this video, all of these walls were bare insulation. Then we stained the plywood, hacked it, tacked it, threw up some trim. And as I'm recording this outro, I'm about 98.7% done. As you see behind me, there's some things going on back here that weren't here in that last scene, and I'm pretty excited to share that with you. That'll be 2 videos from now. The very next video is going to be of the faucet, water pump, and water tank install, because as you know, or some of you know at least, I have not had a fully functioning sink for the past 3 years that I've owned this camper. The sink was this crappy little hand pump sink that leaked, didn't pump out a whole lot of water. It pulled water from a old musty tank that was an exterior fill, which meant I was drinking some musty hose water, which is every bit as delicious as I'm sure you can imagine. So if you're into rebuilding campers, you're into rebuilding trucks, you're into putting those things together and making overlanders, then going out on your own adventures, you might consider subscribing to this channel. I already got a lot of content for you. I got some on deck right now that I need to edit and throw up on YouTube, as well as got a lot more planned for the rest of this summer, and I'm really excited to get all of that out to you, which is what I'm going to go do right now. So I'm going to end this video by putting a link to one of my other videos in the Camper Hack series so you can see where this camper came from, so you know how it got where it is now, and you can see where it's going in the future. I'm also going to let YouTube choose a video from my channel that they think is best for you. Pretty curious to see how that turns out. I'll see you over there.